Hey Siri, set a timer until 7:50.
One sec. Your timer alarm is set for 7:50 a.m.
Lacking the fervent dedication that sees and sounds life's highest quest, he never knew, to our frustration, a dactyl from an anapest. Theocritus and Homer bored him, but reading Adam Smith restored him. In economics he knew well, which is to say that he could tell the ways in which a state progresses, the actual things that make it thrive, and why for gold it need not strive. When basic products it possesses, his father never understood, and mortgaged all the land he could. I have no leisure for retailing the sum of all our hero's parts, but where his genius proved unfailing, the thing he learned above all arts, what from his prime had been his pleasure, his only torment, toil, and treasure. What occupied the livelong day, his languid spirit's fretful play, was love itself, the art of ardor, which Ovid sang in ages past, and for which song he paid at last, by ending his proud days a martyr in dim Moldova's vacant waste, far from the Rome his heart embraced. How early on he could dissemble, conceal his hopes, play jealous swain, compel belief, or make her tremble, seem cast in gloom or mute with pain, appear so proud or so forbearing, at times attentive and then uncaring. What languor when his lips were sealed, what fiery art his speech revealed, what casual letters he would send her. He lived, he breathed, one single dream, how self-oblivious he could seem, how keen his glance, how bold and tender, and when he wished he'd make appear the quickly summoned glistening tear, how shrewdly he could be inventive, and playfully astound the young, use flattery as warm incentive, or frighten with despairing tongue, and how he'd seize a moment's weakness to conquer youthful virtue's meekness through force of passion and of sense, and then await sweet recompense. At first he'd beg a declaration and listen for the heart's first beat, then stalk love faster and entreat a lover's secret assignation, and then in private he'd prepare in silence to instruct the fair. How early he could stir or worry the hearts of even skilled coquettes, and when he found it necessary to crush a rival, oh what nets, what clever traps he'd set before him, and how his wicked tongue would gore him. But you men in wedded bliss, you stayed his friend despite all this. The crafty husband fawned and chuckled, Fabulus's disciple and his tool, as did the skeptical old fool, and the majestic antlered cuckold, so pleased with all he had in life, himself, his dinner, and his wife. Some mornings still abed he drowses, some morning still abed he drowses, until his valet brings his tray. What invitations, yes, 3 houses have asked him to a grand soiree. There'll be a ball, a children's party. Where will he dash to, my good hearty? Where will he make the night's first call? Oh, never mind, he'll make them all. But meanwhile, dressed for morning pleasure, bedecked in broad-brimmed boulevard, he drives to Nevsky Boulevard to stroll about at total leisure, until Breguet's unsleeping chime reminds him that it's dinner time. He calls a sleigh as daylight's dimming. The cry resounds, make way, let's go. His collar with its beaver trimming is silver bright with frosted snow. He's off to Talon's, late and racing, quite sure he'll find Kavarin pacing. He enters, cork and bottle spout. The comet wine come gushing out. A bloody roast beef's on the table, and truffles, youth's delight so keen, the very flower of French cuisine, and Strasbourg pie, that deathless fable, while next to Limburg's lively mould sits Ananas in splendid gold. Another round would hardly hurt them, to wash those sizzling cutlets down. But now the chime and watch alert them. The brand new ballet's on in town. He's off. This critic most exacting of all that touches art or acting, this fickle swain of every star, an honored patron of the bar, to join the crowd where each is ready, to greet and entrechat with cheers, or Cleopatra with his jeers, to hiss at Phaedra so unsteady, recall Moina and rejoice that everyone has heard his voice. Enchanted land, there for a season, that friend of freedom ruled the scene, the daring satirist Fons Vizin, as did derivative Knaz Nin. There Ozerov received the nation's unbidden tears and its ovations, which young Semyonova did share, and our Katenin gave us there. Corneille's full genius resurrected, and there the caustic Shakhanovskoy refreshed the stage with comic joy. Didelot his crowd of fame perfected, there too beneath the theatre's tent my fleeting youthful days were spent. My goddess, you vanished faces, oh hearken to my woeful call. Have other maidens gained your places, yet not replaced you after all? Shall once again I hear your chants, or see the Russian muse of dance perform her soaring soulful flight, or shall my mournful gaze alight on unknown faces on the stages, and when across this world I pass a disenchanted opera glass, shall I grow bored with mirth and rages, and shall I then in silence yawn and recollect a time that's gone? The theatre's full, the boxes glitter, the restless gallery claps and roars. The stalls and pit are all a jitter, the curtain rustles as it soars, and there, ethereal, resplendent, poised to the magic bow attendant, a throng of nymphs, her guardian band, hist, O Mina, takes up her stand. One foot upon the ground she places, and then the other slowly twirls. And now she leaps, and now she whirls. Like down from Eol's lips she races, then spins and twists, and stops to beat her rapid, dazzling, dancing feet. As all applaud, Onegin enters, and treads on toes to reach his seat. His double glass he calmly centers on ladies he has yet to meet. He takes a single glance to measure these clothes and faces with displeasure, then trading bows on every side with men he knew or friends he spied, he turned at last and vaguely fluttered his eyes toward the stage and play, then yawned and turned his head away. It's time for something new, he muttered. I've suffered ballets long enough, but now Didelot is boring stuff. While all those cupids, devils, serpents upon the stage will romp and roar, and while the weary band of servants still sleeps on furs at carriage doors, and while the people are still tapping, still sniffling, coughing, hissing, clapping, and while the lamps both in and out still glitter grandly all about, and while the horses bored at tether still fidget freezing in the snow, and coachmen by the fire's glow curses master and beats palm together, Onegin now has left the scene, and driven home to change and preen. Shall I abandon every scruple, and picture truly with my pen the room where fashion's model pupil is dressed, undressed, and dressed again? Whatever clever London offers to those with lavish whims and coffers, and trades to us by Baltic seas, in trade for tallow and for trees. Whatever Paris, seeking treasure, devises to attract the sight, or manufacture for delight, for luxury, for modish pleasure, all this adorned his dressing room, our sage of 18 summers' bloom. Imported pipes of Turkish amber, fine china, bronzes, all displayed, and purely to delight and pamper, perfume in crystal jars arrayed. steel files and combs in many guises, straight scissors, curved ones, 30 sizes of brushes for the modern male, for hair and teeth and fingernail. Rousseau, permit me this digression, could not conceive how solemn Grimm dared clean his nails in front of him. The brilliant madcap of confession. In this case, though, one has to say that freedom's champion went astray. For one may be a man of reason, and mind the beauty of his nails. Why argue vainly with the season? For custom's rule o'er male prevails. Now, my Eugene, Chadayev's double, from jealous critics fearing trouble, was quite the pedant in his dress, and what we call a fop no less. At least 3 hours he peruses his figure in the looking-glass. Then through his dressing-room he'll pass, like flighty Venus, when she chooses, in a man's attire, to pay a call at masquerade or midnight ball. Your interest piqued, and doubtless growing, in current fashions of toilette, I might describe, in terms more knowing, his clothing for the learned set. This might well seem an indiscretion. Description, though, is my profession. But pantaloons get let and frock. These words are hardly Russian stock, and I confess, in public sorrow, that as is my diction groans, with far too many foreign loans. But if indeed I overborrow, I have of old relied upon our academic lexicon. But let's abandon idle chatter, and hasten rather to forestall our hero's headlong, dashing clatter in hired coach towards the ball. Before the fronts of darkened houses, along a street that gently drowses, the double carriage lamps in rows pour forth their warm and cheerful glows, and on the snow make rainbows glitter. One splendid house is all alight, its countless lampions burning bright, while past its glassed windows flitter in quick succession silhouettes of ladies and their modish pets. But look, Onegin's at the gateway. He's past the porter up the stair, through marble entry rushes straightway, and then runs his fingers through his hair, and steps aside. The crush increases, the droning music never ceases. A bold mazurka grips the crowd, the press intense, the hubbub loud. The guardsman clinks his spurs and dances, the charming ladies twirl their feet, enchanting creatures that entreat a hot pursuit of flaming glances, while muffled by the violin, the wives their jealous gossip spin. In days of dreams and dissipations, on balls I madly used to dote, no surer place for declarations or for a passing of a note. And so I offer, worthy spouses, my services to serve your houses. I pray to you, heed my sound advice. A word of warning should suffice. You too, you mammas, I commend you to keep your daughters well in sight. Don't lower your lorgnettes at night, or else, may God defend you. All this I now can let you know, since I dropped sinning long ago. So much of life I have neglected, in following where pleasure calls. Yet were not morals ill affected. I even now would worship balls. I love youth's wanton fevered madness, the crush, the glitter, and the gladness, the ladies' gowns so well designed. I love their feet, although you'll find that all of Russia scarcely numbers 3 pairs of shapely feet, and yet how long it took me to forget 2 special feet. And in my slumbers they still assail a soul grown cold, and on my heart retain their hold. In what grim desert, madman banished, will you at last cut memory's thread? At dearest feet, where have you vanished? What vernal flowers do you tread? Brought up in oriental splendor, you left no prints, no pressings tender. Upon our mournful northern snow, you loved instead to come and go on yielding rugs in rich profusions, while I, so long ago it seems, for your sake smothered all my dreams of glory, country, proud seclusion. All gone are youth's bright years of grace, as from the meadow your light trace. Diana's breast is charming, brothers, and Flora's cheek I quite agree, but I prefer above these others the feet of sweet Turp is sure. It hints to probing, ardent glances of rich rewards and peerless trances. Its token beauty stokes the fire, the wilful swarm of hot desires. My dear Elvina, I adore it, beneath the table barely seen in summer time on the meadows green. In winter with the hearth before it, upon the ballroom's mirrored floor, or perched on granite by the shore, I recollect the ocean's rumbling. Oh, how I envied then the waves, those rushing tides in tumult tumbling, to fall about her feet like slaves. I long to join the waves impressing upon those feet these lips caressing. No, never midst the fieriest blaze of wildest youth the most fervent days was I so racked with yearning's anguish. No maiden's lips were equal bliss, no rosy cheek that I might kiss, or sultry breast on which to languish. No, never once did my passion flood, so rend my soul, so flame my blood. Another memory finds me ready. In cherished dreams I sometimes stand, and hold the lucky stirrup steady, then feel her foot within my hand. Once more imagination surges, not once more that touch ignites and urges the blood within this withered heart. Once more the love, once more the dart. But stop, enough, my babbling lyre has overpraised these haughty things. They're hardly worth the songs one sings, or all the passions they inspire. Their charming words and glances sweet are quite as faithless as their feet. But what of my Eugene, half drowsing? He drives to bed from last night's ball. All Petersburg, already rousing, answers the drumbeat's duty call. The merchant's up, the peddler scurries with milk in hand, the milkmaid hurries, crackling the freshly fallen snow. The cabby plods to Hackney Row. In pleasant hubbub morn's awaking, the shutters open, smoke ascends, in pale blue shafts from chimney ends. The German baker's up and baking, and more than once in cotton cap has opened up his window trap. But wearied by the ballroom's clamor, he sleeps in blissful sheer delight, this child of comfort and of glamour, who turns each morning into night. By afternoon he'll finally waken, the day ahead all planned and taken. The endless rounds, the varied game. Tomorrow, too, will be the same. But was he happy in the flower, the very springtime of his days, amid his pleasures and their blaze, amid his conquests of the hour? Or was he profligate and hale, amid his feasts to no avail? Yet soon he lost all warmth of feeling, the social buzz became a bore, and all those beauties once appealing were objects of his thoughts no more. Inconstancy grew to fatiguing, and friends and friendships less intriguing. For after all he couldn't drain an endless bottle of champagne to help those pies and beefsteaks settle, or go on dropping words of wit, with throbbing head about to split. And so, for all his fiery mettle, he did at last give up his love of pistol, sword, and ready glove. We still, alas, cannot forestall it, this dreadful ailment's heavy toll. The spleen is what the English call it. We simply call it the Russian soul. 'Twas this our hero had contracted, and though, thank God, he never acted to put a bullet through his head, his former love of life was dead, like Byron's Harold, lost in trances. Through drawing rooms he'd pass and stare, but neither whist nor gossip there, nor wanton sighs, nor tender glances, no nothing touched his sombre heart. He noticed nothing, took no part. Capricious belles of lofty station, you were the first that he forswore. For nowadays, in our great nation, the manner grand can only bore. I wouldn't say that ladies never discuss a say or Bentham ever, but generally you have to grant their talk's absurd if harmless cant. On top of which they're so unerring, so dignified, so awfully smart, so pious and so chaste of heart, so circumspect, so strict in bearing, so inaccessibly serene. Mere sight of them brings on the spleen. You too, young mistress of leisure, who late at night are whisked away in racing droshkies bound for pleasure, along the Petersburg Chaussee. He dropped you too in sudden fashion, apostate from the storms of passion. He locked himself within his den, and with a yawn took up his pen, and tried to write, but Ark's exaction of steady labor made him ill, and nothing issued from his quill. So thus he failed to join the faction of writers whom I won't condemn, since after all I'm one of them. Once more an idler, now he smothers the emptiness that plagues his soul by making his the thoughts of others. A laudable and worthy goal. He crammed his bookshelf overflowing, then read and read, frustrations growing. Some raved or lied, and some were dense. Some lacked all conscience, some all sense, each with a different dogma girded. The old was dated through and through, while nothing new was in the new. So books like women he deserted, and over all that dusty crowd he draped a linen mourning shroud. I too had parted with convention, with vain pursuits of worldly ends, and when Eugene drew my attention, I liked his ways, and we made friends. I liked his natural bent for dreaming, a strangeness that was more than seeming, the cold, sharp mind that he possessed. I was embittered, he depressed. With passion's game, we both were sated. The fire in both our hearts was pale. Our lives were weary, flat, and stale, and for both of us ahead there waited, while life was still, but in its morn, blind fortune's malice and men's scorn.